Welcome to the Spa Girls podcast, the self-publishing podcast for authors. You're in the right place for the best writing, marketing, and publishing advice, plus interviews with industry experts and best-selling authors. I'm Cheryl Phipps.
I'm Shah Barrett.
And I'm Trudy J, and we are joined this week with the lovely Olivia Zugay.
Hey,
Hello.
Olivia.
Hi, Olivia.
I was worried about getting your name wrong, Olivia, which is why I tripped over the first bit of the sentence.
Yeah.
Olivia is a business and marketing coach for self-published authors, which is fantastic. I really love what you're doing. I love the idea of it. And what we are going to do is talk about marketing without social media overload today, which again is such a great topic. So we're really, really excited to dive into that today. But first, I'm going to read out your bio, and then we will get going. So. Olivia Zugay is a business and marketing strategist for self-published fiction authors. As the founder of Story Flow Solutions, she helps authors market and sell their books with clarity, confidence, and sustainable strategy so they can grow their readership, increase their sales, and build thriving full-time author careers, which is what we all want. Yay!
Mm-hmm.
Um, with a background in project management and virtual assistant work for best-selling indie authors, Olivia has spent years behind the scenes crafting high-converting launches, reviving stagnant platforms, and helping her clients hit their highest revenue years. Oh, that's fantastic. Sorry, I'm just like side notes on your bio. And when she's not deep in sales data or mapping out an email funnel, you'll find her reading romance, analyzing book trends, or sneaking a Twilight reference into her content. Welcome to the show.
Fantastic.
Okay, so Olivia, let's get started at the beginning. How did you get into this world? How did you get into being an author coach? Where did it start?
Well, I always throw out there that I actually have a background in animal science. So I actually went to university to study horses, equine science. Books were always my first love, but back when I was going to college, they kind of shared that if you got an English degree, all you could do was teach. And I wanted to do a bit more, but actually it's funny, nowadays all I do is teach. So, um, just not in a classroom. But yeah, I actually, though, after I got my first big girl job and realized that that wasn't what was for me, I basically had kind of a quarter life crisis, or yeah, quarter life crisis, and started a virtual assistant business because I developed all these skills, whether it was website design, email marketing, social media, and just long-term planning and logistics, which is what my clients typically say they love the most. I work a lot with those who have ADHD, which is really interesting. I've just had them gravitate towards me, but I understand that because I have high executive functioning and they sometimes lack that. So it's been really fun to explore that. But yeah, I started out with virtual assistants and then I basically said, well, I always wanted a career with books. So I'm just going to make that for myself. And I started working with authors, but also service providers for authors. So that's where I've seen both sides of the coin. And it's been really interesting to get both sides and understand the struggles from the author's perspective, but also the service provider's perspective of going from step to step and person to person and understanding like where the confusion is within the process of self-publishing and then how to market as well afterwards. And then slowly I've promoted myself to more of a coach and a strategist versus just the doer, which is the virtual assistant. And that's where I am today.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic. So today we're going to talk about marketing without social media overload, which is almost like we're just going to try and about finding ways to market ourselves without social media is kind of what we're talking about. But first of all, I would love to talk about your take on social media. Like, do you still think it's important for an author's career? And yeah, just talk a little bit about how you see that.
Yeah, of course. I still think social media is very much valid and it's still a huge part of the author's career, especially those who are debut in their self-publishing career. I, though, don't think of it as your primary marketing opportunity unless it's you working with those who love your book and they're sharing it on their social accounts. I don't want authors to feel like they need to be sharing or posting across every platform or multiple times a day. And that's typically where I'm snooping in Facebook groups for authors, and I see that is they're just saying, oh, well, I post 3 times a day on 5 different platforms, and I'm thinking, how are you doing that? But typically, they've hired a VA, but the VA is just helping them put content out when the VA could be doing so much more. And so I like to say social media is important for visibility and also just building that trust with the readers. And it's a great touch point with the readers. That's what I use it as, especially for my clients who we do have a larger budget and we don't necessarily focus as much on social media for visibility. I still love it though because I get to interact with the readers and they're so fun, like reading their comments and getting their DMs and seeing the love that they have for the books and like how they interact with each other and share stories about how they read the books or the characters that they fell in love with. That's what I love it for. So it's a great touch point with your readers to understand them, to better get to know them, and to also have sort of a customer service point with them to where if they have any issues, they can easily DM you or comment and share something that's like wrong on your website or wrong within your email or a link is broken. So I love it for that purpose. And then also just having fun. That's what social media really should be, is it's fun. And I, even as a business owner, have lost some of that for myself because of course you think, oh, it's just marketing. But really, like I've gone back to basics of just using it as a fun place to talk about books with other people, which is ultimately all I want to do every day. So I love it for that purpose. It's just for fun and to make friends and build a community, but I don't want authors to rely on it as your main point of visibility for your books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love what you said. You were talking about the connection with readers and how they just want to, because I think sometimes we as authors, get a bit scared almost of our readers and don't want it. Well, okay, me, it's me. I'm talking about me, and don't want to interact with them because you're kind of a little bit afraid of what they're going to say and if they're going to criticize or something like that. So I love that you were kind of like, it can be a really exciting, fun part of it, that connection with readers. And yeah, that was something that stuck out to me. And actually, when I think about it, some of the authors, the most successful authors we've had on, are always people that are really good at interacting with their readers. And I'm thinking Lucy Score is one, but often the ones that we often get people saying, oh, I always replied to every email they sent me, and I talk to my readers, and there's a real connection, and I think they tend to be doing better. Anyway, that's just
Yes.
a comment there. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I would agree. The more that you can make your readers via social media or email or on any platform, even if they leave a Google review or something, like the more that you can make them feel seen and heard and a part of your world, the more that they'll want to engage with you, buy your books, and also share more about you. Because it's the same with any product, when you buy something from a store and you like it and it changed your life or you felt a certain way about it, you want to tell 3 other people about it. So,
Yeah.
and how great would you feel if, that company came up to you, whether in person or on social media, and said, oh, I'm so glad you loved it. Like, I'm so happy it changed your life or it made you feel this way. Like, you would feel great because you were seen. And
Yeah.
so that's really what the readers like to have, is to have an interaction. And also I've really changed the perspective with some of my clients because I feel like also in that realm of, oh, they're a little scary, or I don't necessarily want to maybe like take charge and start that interaction. They're happy to respond to emails or comments or things like that, but asking the audience questions or like leading the interaction is sometimes, well, often it's harder for the authors and for my clients, but I think because I maybe have a little bit of an objective perspective, and also I have in my background, I had to lead 300 volunteers, so I had to talk to the masses all the time and like educate and help them understand policies or procedures or different things. So I see our readers as volunteers, especially those on the email list, because they've agreed, they've signed up, they're there to help, they want to support. So giveaway surveys actually to get marketing information. And they're great. And even if I only have 50 people fill out a survey, it still gives me so much information. So, and I've actually had one of my clients, she told her Amazon ad specialist about this, that I, in one giveaway month, asked, what other readers do you like reading? Who else do you like to see? And so that helped us redirect a lot of our marketing strategy, because then we can, put our ads or content where those readers are already looking, because they're already looking for those authors, and we can just better tailor it to match their preferences based on what their books are, and what my clients' books are. So I love interacting with the readers for that purpose. And also this past month, I have a release coming out with one of my clients in November. And this past month, I asked, what do you want to see in the release content? And typically we followed the same structure for the past 4 books that I've been with her now. And it's really interesting, though. This is the first time I've asked, and they don't really want to know anything. They don't want like any steamy teasers. They don't really want any,
Interesting.
right?
Ah,
I was like,
yeah.
so what do you want to know? So it's really fascinating to see that, because a lot of people love the content based on interactions and metrics, but I was really floored to get that feedback that they don't want to see it. But also, it is the last book in the series where we find out who the murderer is. So that may have a little bit to do with it, but
Could be.
I was really interested to see that they don't want to know about any like relationship building or like romance teasers or anything. It was really interesting. So I have to kind of rethink my strategy with that feedback now. But see, just getting that based on, interacting with your readers can really help you better tailor your marketing, but also potentially your books and your upcoming series or whatever you have going on, in your world, and how you plan the trajectory of your career. Because I feel like sometimes as authors, we often are in our heads and we want to get the story out of our, out of us for ourselves. But really, the more that we can think about the reader and how we can better support them or provide for them, the better that they'll then support and provide for us, which is basically a take on a quote that I got from John Green when I went to see him speak last year. He said, the more generous you can be to your readers, the more generous they will be to you. And I 100% agree. Like, the more that you can, help them to help you, the better off you'll be.
It's so true.
That was a long ramble.
No, that was good. And I just want to pick up, I think that's a great way to look at it as a volunteer, because all of us have worked, not necessarily leading a volunteer organization, but been sort of in a position, working with volunteers. And I think that's a really good approach. Like, I think that's really interesting. Yeah.
That's
So
very
where do you
helpful.
go with that when you ask a question like that and pretty much they're giving you an answer that you hadn't expected? So where do you go if they're saying, don't give us this? What do you do instead? Is there an instead?
So then I ask more questions. I just continue to interact with them and ask. So I do have another month before the release. So I might put that in the October survey if they want to know the steamy teaser, because typically we don't put that out until the week before the book release. Or I'll ask on social media. She has a Facebook group, or we have some key readers that we do interact with via email or social media. So I might specifically ask them, because they're always happy to provide feedback, and really interact with us a lot, like across multiple platforms. So yeah, it's just continuing to ask questions. And I think that's the best thing that you can do for yourself, not only as an author, but as a reader as well, is just be curious, be open-minded, and continue to ask questions. And that's actually something I just put in my bi-weekly newsletter. Was I love teaching, especially newer authors, that lesson, because I feel like they're kind of always sort of in that mindset of like, oh, readers are scary. But just ask questions, whether it's your readers, whether it's service providers, or just people on, anywhere in the book community. Always ask questions about anything and be curious and continue to try and learn for anything. Even if you already maybe know the answer or have an idea of the answer, just ask because there are no silly questions. We know this from school or from life. There are no silly questions. And even if somebody has already heard that question 1,000 times, that doesn't mean that your perspective or your situation won't benefit them as, the responder or somebody else listening in. So continue to ask questions and be curious.
It sounds like
That's
your
fantastic.
newsletter is quite prominent in your interaction as well, if you're doing it bi-weekly. So is
Yeah.
that coming from you, or
As
is that
in
coming to your
twice a
clients?
week, or is that every 2 weeks?
Oh, I do. For me personally, I do my newsletter bi-weekly. So I do it every 2 weeks.
Ah,
So
okay.
yes.
Okay.
But for clients, I recommend because I also have had this conversation with many a client, and I've seen this across the board so many times as well as people. So I love newsletters because, or just email content for authors and how their subscribers can interact with you via that way, as well as it's typically your driving mode for sales, not necessarily social media. I don't see a lot come from that, but we do see a lot come from newsletters and your email list because again, they're already bought in, they're warm leads, so they're ready for it. Whenever you do pitch them a sale, but I always recommend like just send one a month, like do one robust email a month. You can do a giveaway, you can not do a giveaway, but just interact with them, give them an update. That's the biggest thing. They always just want to know, when is the next book coming out? Where is it in the process? What are you even doing? What are your thoughts right now as you're writing it? Um, and I don't think you need to write something twice a week. I do because that's what I do as a service provider, and I want to provide as much education as possible. But as an author, you really only need to do one a month. And really, how much more do you have to say, and how much energy do you have to send out more than that? Um, and I've seen authors try and do two a week or sometimes two a month, but it's a lot and it gets time consuming, especially if you have multiple pen names as well as your own name. That's again, that's too much content. And plus, as a subscriber yourself, how many times do you want to get an email in your inbox from the same person? I'd rather see it once a month and then be like, great, I'll see you next month. So
Yeah.
I think the more that you can interact, like in a very genuine, robust way with your readers, the better, versus feeling like you continuously have to meet a quota.
Yeah, that's fair enough. One other thing you mentioned is that I'm just curious about. Do you do any kind of like A/B testing on this? Because I just have heard other people talking about asking questions of newsletters, and people don't always like that, asking like which cover do you prefer, and then they do A/B testing on say Facebook for which cover, and it's the cover that's preferred by the readers in the group isn't necessarily the most successful cover in terms of what gets picked up when they've done A/B testing. And I just, like, yeah, so the difference between kind of there's that connection thing that you're getting from readers, but I wonder whether they're always going to give you
Is it the right accurate kind of
is it
thing?
the act? Because
Yeah.
you did mention when you said, you get lots of reactions and how people are reacting to the say the teaser that you're putting up, and then people are saying, oh, I actually don't want the teaser. So I just wonder, is there do you just not, because
Yeah.
I would be still, if people are reacting to the teaser, I'd be like, oh, we'll keep putting the teaser up, and then maybe think of something else that maybe these other people haven't thought of, that are not wanting the teasers from your newsletter. That makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, of course. So I would say first off with that, and this is probably going to be too much of a generalization, but every release or every bit of content that you put out is a test. It's always gathering data and metrics and information from that, and over time it may change. what you're getting feedback on. And that is especially so for if you're releasing maybe the third book in a trilogy versus the first book in a new series. So what's going to work is going to depend on where you're at within your publishing progress, and series, or if you're new, or if you have maybe this is your 30th book. It's always going to change, and your readers are going to want different things. So that's especially where my client and I are thinking about that right now, because we're not only releasing her last book in the series, but we're starting to work on a new book in the next series that will come out next year. So we've been talking a lot about covers and, well, what would work. She writes romantic suspense, but she was asking me, well, should we do the like cartoonish covers that are really popular right now? And she's like, I don't want to do that. I said, okay, well, let's not. We'll just do some research and see what works. And I said, that is what people are leaning towards, but it may not be what your readers want to see or what would work within your genre. So it always goes back to, what is your genre? What is currently selling? What do you see doing well? I also think of marketing, the best strategy sometimes that you can do is just stalk other people and see what they're doing and what works. And again, ask questions, and you can ask other authors. I think also authors are sometimes afraid to ask questions of other authors, but just ask, like, why did you change your covers? Or why did you change the name? Or why did you pick that? It's not competition. Of course, they may write in the same genre, but you're ultimately helping each other in an industry where it can be very lonely, and you need all the support you can get. And even if, same genre competition, but I mean, you're both supporting each other, and readers ultimately like to get the most information or similar writers to what you're also writing. So the more that you can make those connections and share and do newsletter swaps, the better, because it ultimately benefits both of you. And I know I'm going off track. I'm going to go back to the original question, but I'll share that actually in that, just, supporting other authors and doing newsletter swaps. My one client and I, we increased her email subscriber list by more than 17,000 subscribers last year just by doing newsletter swaps.
Wow.
And sharing other authors. But I would say, back to your original question, the A/B testing, yes, you can ultimately do that, and you can have readers really help you figure out what works best, whether it's a cover or a title or certain things. I think having them interact with you in that way is really important, but ultimately it's up to you to see what would sell best, because again, it is a product. And I always hate to say that to authors, but it is a product, and we have to market it and sell it accordingly. And that doesn't mean that even if you choose your gut instinct, which is what you want your cover to look like, or what the title to look like, or the blurb to be, you can always change those things. You can always re-release a book, and there's nothing wrong with that if you relaunch it in a year because the cover, the blurb, or whatever didn't work. And that's just, again, testing. But sometimes you have to do that, and you have to have that risk tolerance, which is also what I often share with people who come to me and they say, which should I do, traditional or self-publishing? And I'm like, how much risk are you willing to take? And how much faith do you have in yourself? And can you boost your own morale when things don't go as planned?
Yeah.
Because of course it never will. Just from my perspective and what I've learned.
Yeah.
I would say that's true for traditional and self-publishing.
Yeah. So if we get back onto the idea of visibility without social media, let's talk about discoverability. So what do you mean by discoverability, and what can we do via the concept of discoverability that will help us as authors?
Yeah, of course. So the first thing I always tell clients is if you tell no one about your book, nobody will buy it. So first thing is just tell everybody that you know. And I understand there's fear and shyness around that. I had that happen whenever I launched my business and I told nobody. Did I get clients? Just sometimes, a little bit, but I really had to work. But it would have been better had I told everybody in my network personally, because, I know maybe 10 people, and those 10 people know 10 people, and it just spreads like wildfire. So the more that you can rely on your personal network, and kind of get over that fear, which I know is easier said than done, even from personal experience. Just starting with telling people and telling your friends and your family can help with that initial discoverability. And I think also, more than anything, it boosts your just morale and your spirit and getting further into that position of having to constantly share, because not only do you have to work to always write the book and put that together and have that creativity, but you also have to constantly market, which is probably the biggest thing that I hear from newer authors or even mid-lists, where they're like, oh, the hardest part of publishing is marketing.
Mm.
Which I
Very
totally
common.
understand. Yeah, so I would start with just working on telling as many people as you can. And that also goes to, you can use social media for that. And that's a great way to kind of start that wildfire trajectory for yourself. Is don't necessarily focus on putting out content, but sharing your book as if you're your own best friend who read your book and was like, oh my gosh, everybody has to read this. And that's the best thing that I see that authors can do, is to just share their book like they love it so much and they want other people to read it, versus I wrote this thing, please buy it. It's better if you market more as a reader versus the author. And then readers are more likely to pick it up because it's a personal recommendation versus an author saying, please buy this. And then there's that, for some reason, and I wish I had a degree in psychology, but there is that like stopgap for readers where it's like, oh, an author told me, do I trust them? Do I want to take the chance on them? Do I want to spend 99 cents or 5.99, which is wild. My clients and I talk about that all the time, the difference of 99 cents versus 5.99. Like, there is a big difference in pricing your book, but yeah, discoverability just starts with just telling people as much as possible. You can rely on social media for that. I wouldn't rely on it, but you can definitely use it. Rely on your network though, and anybody and everybody that you can tell. And then discoverability really comes from, my best opportunities have come from where you can be in front of a group that already exists who will like the content that is within your book. So if you write thrillers, if you can go to a thriller Facebook group, and share it. But I would share it from your personal Facebook profile, not your author page, because that, again, it's just building more trust with the readers, and it comes as more of a personal recommendation than an author self-promoting, as well as Facebook groups are sometimes stingy on when you can and what you can share. So if you're promoting yourself as your own reader, it can be more beneficial to do it that way. You can also go on, if you write World War II, historical fiction, go on World War II podcasts. That's where people would already be, wanting to know more about that content. So the more that you can go where readers are already interested in the material that you're creating, the better. And also high visibility and discoverability like that, like somebody has already built the platform for you to interact with, the better. So like as a business, that's what I do. I have workshops and I have, again, speaking engagements like this podcast, where you have an audience and they're looking for the content and the information that I'm here to provide. So the same for authors. And I think sometimes too, debut authors and even like a couple, maybe have like 3 or 4 published books might be a little like, oh, who am I to pitch a podcast or, talk to these people or, really share something to a large group of people. But it's just, again, thinking about it more from you have such a love for your story, your characters, or the information that you want to provide to your readers. And you're just excited to share it with a large group of people. It's not anything on you personally. It's not if you get rejected. It's, again, not anything on you personally. It's not your book is awful. It's just maybe you're not a good fit for the audience, or maybe it's not the right time right now. But anywhere that you can go to put yourself in front of as many people as possible, the better. But there's a caveat to that where um, your book price does determine your success with sales after that huge amount of visibility. But I'll end it that tangent there.
All right, so just finding other groups to put your things out to. There's no anything else that you've got in there, or should we move on to the reader retention kind of topic?
Um, well, I can add that. So discoverability, one of the best things that I have seen, and if you do have a little bit of funds, and if you can price your book specifically, to best boost this, then you will have higher discoverability. So the best thing that you can do, that I've seen is do newsletter swaps. But if you can offer a free book or a free novella or short story or something to get people onto your email list, then that can boost your sales later on. If you can do a paid promo like written word media or Fussy Librarian or something like that, again, if you can discount your book to either 99 cents or free, the more results you'll have, the more downloads, versus if it's a paid promotion promoting a full priced book. Unless it is, there is a little bit of a difference with that, because if you already have a bit of a reputation, or maybe it's the third book in the series or fifth or ninth or whatever it is, your readers are gonna be invested. So you can promote that more full price, and you may have a better, pre-order run or actual sales run. I had that with my client this past book launch we did. It was her highest grossing pre-order yet, which was 20K plus. But that was because I told her it's the 8th book. People are going to buy it. Just list it at full price. Let's stop doing this 99 cents, 2.99 thing. Like, I know we're trying to find new readers, but let's find new readers through other opportunities. If you want to make the most sales, then just put it at full price. And yeah, it was a 20K plus pre-order. That was just the pre-order, which was
Fantastic.
amazing. But what we've done for her actually is to find new readers is we do use meta ads, which has been very helpful. But I do it for her 2 novellas that you can get for free. And it's basically, we've used different strategies, but we only spend $10 a day. It's so minimal. But we get roughly 10 to 15 subscribers a day. So our percentage, our click conversion rate, I believe, is 13%, which is like 19% lower than ads in similar trends. So it's great. But yeah, it just takes time and testing, and we tried different versions. But yeah, the more that you can do low cost options, but really give readers an easy entry point into your world, either through a free thing or a discounted thing, the better that you'll see, results from trying to have more visibility.
So there's definitely a sense that you're wanting to draw, like, so those are ads for getting people onto the newsletter list. So then you've got that direct connection versus sales ads that are going to, say, Amazon and trying to get them to just buy the book or get the free download of your book. So that's kind of feels like that's a big part of your strategy, is that connection to readers and getting them, drawing them into your world like that, which is awesome.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
And then again, that's kind of funnels into the reader retention, which I think is the next topic.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so reader retention is really it's focusing on giving them an easy entry point. So that's where I highly suggest having a freebie of some sort, whether it's a short story. Everybody has a newsletter, but don't necessarily promote the newsletter. You can, but that's not the free thing. Like readers want to get something. And typically what they love is a free book, but you can do a novella or a short story. And actually, I highly recommend for debut authors to start their career in that way instead of putting 5,000 USD plus towards producing a full book when you don't even know if anybody likes your writing or if you have an audience to sell it to. I highly suggest launching your career with a free short story or a free novella. It doesn't have to be like high quality. I would suggest having a couple people read it and edit it so it looks somewhat high quality. You can do a minimal cover that you've created your own, by yourself on Canva or, BookBrush or different opportunities where you can do it. And then just put that out there and start to get emails and build an audience around that. And then, even if you only start to get like 10 people on an email list, then you start to see like, oh, people are interested. Maybe they'll want my full novel, or, more from me. And oftentimes you'll see that and get those interactions with readers because they want more, and they'll tell you. Readers will tell you. This is also a thing. Readers will tell you what they're thinking if you just ask. Or sometimes they just tell you because they just want to tell you because they're that kind of person. But yeah, I highly suggest starting that way because then boost your spirits. You feel better about starting your career already knowing that somebody's interested in your work. And then you have more faith when you do put those funds towards the book's production. And so I highly recommend that way. But reader retention definitely is based on how well do you interact with your readers? How well are you there? But also how good is your writing and how much are you drawing them in and keeping them there, either through your sales funnel, which is something that I teach my clients a lot, is it's not just put the book out there and woohoo, hope for the best. It's keeping them there because you have all the strategies in place to keep them there. So it's having a sales funnel. It's making sure your front matter and back matter are supporting that mission to keep the reader within your world, whether it's a reminder to sign up for your newsletter at the end of the book or to buy the next book. So you're constantly wanting to keep them there. And as much as I hope or don't want to say it, but like people do, even as adults, we all need to be reminded. And I'll go back to my volunteer analogy. We all hate going to a thing as a volunteer and getting there and thinking, what am I here for? What am I supposed to do? Where's the person in charge? Where's the instructions? Even if you're doing something as simple as like a beach cleanup and you're just there to pick up trash, but still there's somebody should be giving you instructions on where do you find the trash bags? How far down the beach are you going? How often should you check in with them? Where do you put the trash bags after you fill them up, So readers are the same. You have to continuously tell them what to do and how to interact with you because that ensures that they're going to interact with you in the way that you want, which is ultimately to keep them around and have them buy more books. So the more that you can just share that, tell them what you want them to do instead of thinking, oh, well, they like the book, they'll buy the second one. No, you have to tell them to buy it.
This is awesome. I love the way you're thinking about this, the whole treat them like volunteers. Because now I've got this idea of me turning up at the beach to pick up rubbish. And if no one told me what to do, I would get a bit pissed off, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I'd be like, who's in charge? I'd almost want to start taking charge myself, but that's a whole other story. But it is. So that's a really neat way for us as authors to start thinking about our list. It's not these people that you're scared to contact, but actually people that you need to tell them what to do. Like, why are they with you? Why are they on this list?
Right.
What's the point of it? And that's a great way to think about it. Actually, and I wanted to just interrupt to say I love the idea of writing this short story and just putting that out there and getting, even if you just get 10 people on this list, because it's 10 people to interact with. Those 10 people is much easier to interact with a much larger group. And you can kind of get used to that idea of it. And I think it's such a nice way to ease yourself into it, instead of kind of going large straight away. So that's I haven't ever heard that as advice before.
We
So
have,
I
we have, to be
have
fair,
we
we have said
I have well
previously
have we
many
like as
years
a
ago.
short yeah, I just feel like
But
that's
I
not
think it's,
common advice maybe.
no, it's not common.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually, like you say, Olivia, before somebody spends a huge thousands of dollars on something, particularly if it's their first piece of writing or their first book, I think that's yeah, because as much as we'd all like the first one to be, the spectacular shoot to the stars success, often it's not. We're still learning as writers.
Mm.
So,
Even though
yeah.
I feel a little bit twitchy about the idea of an author making up their own cover in Canva, but maybe that is just about getting yourself out there and dipping your toes in rather than and getting just that first little bit of connection with your readers before you go to the next step. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry
which
to interrupt you. Yeah.
no, no, not at all. You interrupt me at any time. I know I ramble. But no, I go my like one of my guilty pleasures is watching YouTube videos. I love vloggers. I don't know why, but it's so much better than TV. And I learned so many things, and I love watching them do fall resets and things. But I have learned so much about marketing from them, and I
Mm.
apply the same thoughts to book marketing as what they share. But the same with YouTube. If you start a YouTube channel, you're not going to have somebody buy this grand thing to get access to your videos. You're just going to put a video on YouTube and hope people come to you. Same with a podcast. You're just going to start with putting something out there, and you may be filming on an iPhone, or back in the day you had, horrible little digital cameras until you started to upgrade, and then you bought a better camera or bought new technology or got better lighting or did more effects. So I see it as that process of just start with where you're at and slowly increase instead of, and I think Bookstagram, which we love them, but I think Bookstagram has built up so much hype around this,
Mm.
what the author, especially the debut author, should start with. But really, it's again just starting with where you're at. You don't have to follow the trends or show up in this specific way, because I always tell my clients too even if you're not sure if your story will sell, there's always a reader for your story. It may not be who you intended or who you thought, but readers are always out there. It's just showing up and putting it out there to start with. But we do want to keep them around. And that's where I find that a lot of debuts and, even mid-list struggle is how to keep the readers around and how to keep them excited. And also that's where they start to get burnt out because they're maybe writing 2 books a year, releasing 2 or sometimes 3 books a year and not wanting to do the marketing. But if we build those funnels and have these strategies in place, especially with our first, 1 to 5 books, then you're more likely to get into a better rhythm with marketing and writing and set yourself up for success. So that's kind of where I'm a little bit trying to rewrite the narrative with marketing, because oftentimes, again, going back to my first comment, was I see authors hire a VA to help them just put out content when I wish that they would talk to a mentor or talk to a coach or somebody who can give them that higher level thinking and processing to be able to really plan logistics and long term versus just focusing on the right now, which is often just let me write as many newsletters and post as much as possible. And that's where, again, as a business owner, I've struggled with that. But one of the biggest helps in my career has been working with a business coach and somebody who's more experienced than me, who has more knowledge than me, and who has that objective perspective of where I'm at, but also is able to see me as a personal, like as a person and what I want to do. And that's ultimately what I do for my clients. It's not just the strategy and the logistics, it's also seeing them as a person and helping them plan with where they're at in life and maybe where they might be without them actually thinking about it of like, well, are you gonna be sick this year? Are you gonna, are your kids gonna be busy? Are you gonna need maternity leave? Like, how can we realistically plan your life and your career around this? Or, if you have a full-time job as well as trying to launch an author career, how can we support you in that instead of, again, yeah, feeling like you have to put out this massive product that you spent thousands of dollars to put together and you don't even know if anybody's going to buy it. So start small, start with where you're at and work your way up.
And the best use of your time as well, because it's time and resources together, isn't it? It's,
Yes.
it's not like a little bit here, a little bit there. It's like what's actually going to move the needle for you
Mm.
Yes. Yeah,
and be
exactly.
sustainable. Mm.
Yes, that's what I love because it's not just like doing so much as possible. It's what is strategically going to move the needle and
Mm.
take as less time and effort as possible
Mm.
to
Yeah.
have the highest results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's move us. That's all genius information. Let's go back to reader retention. And so what are
Yeah.
some of the things that you do or suggest to your clients for retaining those readers and keeping them in that world of, or on your platform, I guess, reading your books and things? Yeah.
Yeah, so just if you are initially getting them in, so I'll talk from not necessarily from a social media standpoint, although I would highly suggest if you're newer and you can't necessarily have paid promotions or do, paid advertising or anything, if you are relying on social media, which as a debut, I highly suggest that you just start building that audience through that platform because it's free. But again, always driving them towards your newsletter or somewhere where you can get their email because you do control that information versus social media. You have no control. You don't even have necessarily control over your own content, but really focus on building those relationships with your readers. So commenting, DMing, sharing as much as possible, following them, being a part of their world. Because just those immediate like 20 fans or followers can be your super fans for life. Again, that's also what I've pulled from YouTubers. They'll have those initial watchers who were there, 5, 10 years ago when they started the channel, and they're still watching to this day. And it's most likely, and well, it's not most likely, it's because the person, the creator, is interacting with those people and remembering them. And not only, having them be their fan, but you're a fan of your readers as well. So hype them up, get excited about them. That's what I learned again from managing volunteers. The more that I can hype them up, congratulate them, um, be a part of their world, and really just thank them and be gracious and, grateful that they're there, the more that they'll want to stay around. So it's just creating an environment initially that you can sustain. That means that makes the reader want to stay because, of course, we all like to stay where we feel good.
Yeah.
So it's really that. And then, once they're on your newsletter, it's just continuing to sustain that community, that relationship, and um, share your personality. Like, not only do readers love your books, but they love how your personality comes out within the books. Because ultimately, that's what makes everybody's stories different, is it's from their personality and perspective. But you don't just have to show that in your books. Show it in your newsletter. Show it in your content. Show it in how you show up for podcasts or interviews or anything, press releases, book signings, conferences, anywhere where you can go, where you can show up and show who you are. There's one author, I forget her name right now, but I love her personality because just as a celebration with her readers, after every book signing, she takes a shot, which I think is so funny. And people are like, "Why do you do that?" And she's like, I just like to do, and it's what I want to do. And I, as a reader, I'm like, that's great, good for her. But it's memorable as well because
Mm.
I, it's something that I relate to her and her personality. So the more that you can show up as yourself, the better that readers will want to stay. And then, of course, once they're a part of your world, you want to, make it worth their time because we all have limited time in this world. And so the more that you can make your books, your content, your newsletters, your information that you're providing worth their time, the more likely that they're going to want to stay. And that just also goes back to creating a community and a space where they want to be. And that's just, you may not know that initially. It may start to develop over time. And as you, I think as authors, we're most likely introverts. So the more that you can kind of get out of your own head and out of that space of fear of who wants to know me, which I've been in many years as a business owner, the more that you can do that, the more that your readers will want to stay. And then again, yeah, just continue to ask questions and interact with them. Don't be afraid of your readers.
Mm,
Mm. And I
that's
think you become
fantastic.
more comfortable doing that, don't you? If when you start off, it's really awkward, but after a while, it just becomes part of who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's kind of, yeah, where if you're learning a new dance for the first time, of course you're going to stumble and you're going to step on somebody's toes and you're going to turn the wrong way when everybody else turns the other way. So,
Mm.
but over time you slowly get more confident. And I used to line dance when I was in college, and that's how it was when I started.
Yeah.
I was turning the wrong way and doing
Mm.
all sorts of things. And then finally I got to the point where it was maybe only with a couple dances, but I was so comfortable that, when they said only like experts on the floor, I could be out there. And then slowly too, I was teaching other people. So, and I think that's another thing as well is to teach. Don't just ask questions, but also teach. If
Mhm.
you see an author new or, in a position where you were once, encourage them. I think that's one thing that could be a little bit better in the author world is that we all interact with each other more. I think we're often in our own little bubble. So the more that you can interact and, have that crew to learn from, whether
Mm.
it's just a few, the more that you'll, have fun in this space because it can be a very lonely space to be in. But creating community and finding people who you want to support and who support you, whether they're readers or other authors or service providers or, anybody, family, friends, the more comfortable you'll get within the space.
Mm. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool. That's great. Definitely think we should all, as a community, be kind of chatting more to each other and stuff. That's lovely. Yeah, yeah. So the other thing that you mentioned was long game thinking. So I think we need to maybe move on to that. So what does that mean? Like, what do you like long game thinking, and what are some of the ways that you do that with your clients?
Yeah, of course. So long game thinking, really, if you're a debut, again, it's starting out with where you're at versus thinking about, having to have this huge production. It's slowly building up. And if you're a current author and have maybe a couple books in your catalog, it's using your catalog to boost your sales. So it's constantly thinking and strategizing on how can you boost that visibility, and that comes from, multiple strategies. If you're a debut, again, I suggest that kind of just initially growing that audience with a free, short story, a novella or something, and having the thought of, maybe if you have the pre-order link already up for that debut, you may not have the, full thing. But if you're like, oh, well, I do want to publish, I'm going to just say it's going to come out in a year. If you have the pre-order link in that short story that they got for free, people are most likely going to actually purchase ahead of time. So it's constantly, again, telling the reader what to do. What do you want them to do in, 3 months, 5 months, 10 months, 2 years from now. So it's constantly understanding your reader's behavior and how to plan around that. So that's something where, with one of my clients, we're thinking up covers for a new series. And I'm thinking, oh, wouldn't it be awesome if we, because her readers are so invested in certain elements of her stories. And I said, oh, wouldn't it be so amazing if we had, a different object on each cover, and then they had to guess. And we could play off of that in content or in marketing strategies. And so it's just constantly being creative and thinking ahead and how to excite your reader to keep them coming back and entertained. Because ultimately, even though we are using the written word, authors are entertainers. So, how can you keep them entertained? Not like you're, a monkey in a circus, but you are, keeping them engaged. But that's just again from, having a community. And I think that also is something that you can pull on is, well, if you are an organization and you want volunteers, how do you continuously keep them coming to events to volunteer? You constantly have to think up strategies of, oh, well, it's holiday toy drive. We should have hot chocolate there and we can entice them with that versus, and then at that toy drive, we'll have them sign up for the Valentine's Day fundraiser. So we'll already have a list at that event to encourage them to come to the next event. So same thing with books. If you have a book out and a book is going to be coming out, the next year, make sure that pre-order link is in the back. If you don't have that yet, make sure they have somewhere that they can sign up for a wait list to get that book. So constantly telling them where to go, what to do, and how you want them to interact with you and continue to stay in your world, the better. Because again, we all love to be volunteers and have as much information and direction as possible. So the more that you can, plan out your reader's route within your world, the more that they'll stick around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, that's very true. Okay, so we're coming to the end of our interview now. Is there any other kind of strategies or things that you think that our audience should be thinking of in terms of their publishing career? Is there anything other golden nuggets of advice that you have to give that you can think of?
Yeah. I mean, there's always so much, which it really, there's so much. It's always hard to kind of choose the perfect one, but I would say the biggest thing is to just trust your own instincts. I think a lot of us, see other authors, and like I said earlier, stalking other people's marketing is really a great strategy and where you understand and see strategy, but ultimately there's only so much comparison you can do or so much, oh, well, it worked for them, it'll work for me. You really have to trust your own instincts, have that relationship with your readers, and just do what works for you and what works best for your books within the space that you're marketing. So sometimes it might mean, again, changing up a strategy for one book versus the other, or doing a specific thing on one platform versus doing something else on another. So it's just trusting yourself. Don't necessarily get in the space of, I have to do it a certain way. That's something that I had to learn as a business owner was there is no right way to do a business. There's no right way to publish a book or be successful at this path. It's ultimately trusting yourself and moving forward with your best interests as well as your reader's best interests in mind. That's my best piece of advice.
That's very good advice. I think that's really awesome because we do find that we're so busy trying to do what everyone else has done, we're kind of forgetting to follow our own instincts. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been amazing. So if someone wants to find you or look for you, like wants to have you as their coach or whatever, how do we find you?
Sure. So my website is storyflowsolutions.com. Again, my name is Olivia. My business is Storyflow Solutions. I do have several options, but the best way to interact with me is on Instagram. If anybody has any questions, feel free to comment or DM. But if you do want more full-time support from me, I do have a membership launching later this month where you can get me hands-on within your author career. You can also interact with the community of other writers that I'll have in there, and you'll learn more golden nuggets from me. But if you do want done for you services, I offer those as well. And all of that you can find on my website, or again, DM me on Instagram.
What's your Instagram handle, Olivia?
At Storyflow Solutions.
Makes total sense.
Shah, where can we be found?
We can be found on Instagram too, by the way, if anybody's wondering, at Spa Girls Podcast. And we can be found on YouTube at Spa Girls Podcast. And we can be found at Patreon on Spa Girls Podcast.
Awesome. And thank you so much, Olivia, for joining us here today.
Thank
It's
you,
been
Olivia.
fascinating. I love all of your analogies. They're so visual that it makes it's
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm obviously a visual learner because I have
Me too.
I'm imagining myself line dancing and on the beach picking up rubbish
With your volunteers
with my
behind you, truly.
volunteers. It's brilliant. So, thank you so much for that. And thank you to all of our listeners for joining us again for another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We love you all. We're so excited to be here for you every week. And we will be back again next week with another amazing guest. But for now, farewell.
Keep well.
See you
Bye.
then.
Bye.